All right, so this is the data video for experiment number 34, the oxidation reduction electron transfer reactions. Now, this video is going to be a little bit about where you should begin your data from. So as you go through, you can always pause this and watch the YouTube videos I've linked. And so what I've tried to do is collect some demonstrations of these experiments being done so you guys can see the actual results. And then you just want to make sure that you write down what you're seeing. So for example, part one. Now part one is the metals versus metal ions. Now we're looking at three different metals in particular. We're looking for zinc, or iron, and copper. Now, all three of these metals are done in that first video that I've linked inside your lab section. And so you're going to get all of your data from the video. Now, there's a couple extra ones as well. And so if you're not quite sure how you're supposed to be interpreting your results, then you want to go to one of the next ones where it walks through a little bit about the theory behind it, in case maybe from the pre-lab or whatever it didn't quite connect with you. Right? So you always have those as backup ones for part one. And then I chose the first one because it does very clear pretty much exactly what you would have done. So you want to read through those, see your results, and you want to record those down for your data and use that to make your couple. Now part two, on the other hand, this is going to be our metals with our acid. Right? Because this time we're trying to compare it against our hydrogen reduction reaction. Now, the thing that I would remind you with that is that if you are going to reduce H plus to H2, right? So we're reducing our hydrogen. What we're looking for is bubbles, because those bubbles would be our hydrogen gas. Now, both of those are shown in part two. Either of those first two videos will actually show you that. The second video is better explained, I feel like, but the quality of the bubbles, like whether you can see them or not, is a little bit harder to see. The first video, it's much better quality of the results, but the explanation is not as good. So you can try to watch either of those, but that should give you all of the data that you need for your part two, for your hydrogen. Right? And so you should be able to now have collected all of your information for part one through part two. And so the next part that we're looking at is part three. Which is our halogen oxidation. Now, for our halogen oxidation, the part that I struggled to find was that I couldn't find any that was just bromine and iodine. So this one is done with chlorine. You can go ahead and just ignore the chlorine side. Or you can include it, either one. Doesn't really matter. Right? But the part that I want to remind you is that when you're looking at your results, so in your test tube, when they first mix them together, you'll see two solutions that they make. Generally, there'll be a solution down here, and then there's one in the hexane. Now, that bottom color is kind of hard to see sometimes, and so really what we want to be looking at is the one in the hexane, right? So this one up here. Now, bromine by itself is kind of like this yellowish orange color. And so we'll see that when it's Br2. On the other hand, wrong color. Our iodine, it takes on a different color. This one is more of a violet. Inside. So if you see like a purpley red color, that means that you have I2 that's formed. Now, both the bromine and the iodide, no strong colors for them in the hexane. And so as you're going through, when you're trying to do is you're trying to look for that color change, right? So if you see the red, that means that you have I2. So either your iodine, if it started off with I2, didn't react, or if you produced it, then you definitely made some more. Right? And so that's what you want to be looking for, is that kind of purpley reddish one in the hexane layer is going to give you an idea about where they are. And so I chose this one because I think it does a very clear job of explaining what you're trying to see. And so that's going to give us for part 3. Now I'm going to make a new slide for part 4 because it gets a little bit trickier here. Now the thing with part 4 is that I wasn't able to find all of our reactions. So for part 4, your data is pretty much going to come from this video. Now, I have been able to show some of those reactions, right? So we can see the FeCl3, which is our iron 3+, and it reacting with our bromine and our iodine. And I was able to find like what a positive result would be with the blue precipitation. But I wasn't able to find all of them, right? And so I'm going to explain to you kind of what you guys are going to see for your different ones. So I'm going to give you the observations, and then you guys have to do the interpretations for them. And so that's going to be up to you to make sure that you interpret these correctly, so that way you can write out your data for them. So this is going to be for part 4. So in part 4, what it says is that we're going to take a test tube, and one of them is going to be our FeCl3, and we're going to mix that with KBr and Ki separately. And so that's what we kind of see there in our videos. Now, the part that I'll tell you is that when you mix them, so this is our FeCl3. Let's say that we mix them. We say this is Ki, this is KBr. Right? So when we mix them, what we're going to see with our KBr is when we're looking for that response up in the top. We're looking for that bromine to be formed. But when we mix them this time, oh, there we go. We're not going to see that. We're going to see a change in color as the kind of like the bromide and the Fe interact, but we're not going to see that bromine form. So no Br2 is formed. Now this is going to be different than when we do it with our Ki. When we mix it with our Ki, what we'll see is when we add hexane, we're going to get a little bit of that violet color. So we're going to see I2 be formed. And that's what we're looking for when we're looking for the impact of the iron with our bromine. And so we're trying to figure out what exactly has happened. Now, the thing that I would tell you is that your iron isn't coming out as a solid. So we're not finding, we're not seeing any solid Fe formed. So you just want to take that into account as you go through that. So we've done it now with our FeCl3. And so the next thing that we're going to do is to that sample, we're going to add in our Fe2 plus test. So we're taking each of these and we're doing another test. We're starting off fresh without the KBr. So this is really FeCO3. So not without the KBr, it's without the hexane. Right. We allowed those to mix. But this time, instead of adding hexane in to see what our response is going to be, we're adding something else. We're adding in potassium ferrocyanate Now, what's interesting about this is that this compound is going to form, well, this compound is basically releasing this complex ion. Now that complex ion will take on like a bluish color or form a blue precipitate when it interacts with Fe2 plus. So if there's an Fe2 plus ion present, then we're going to see this dark blue precipitate. And what that's going to tell us is that inside that compound, we had not just Fe3 plus, but we had Fe2 plus. And so I was able to find a test where they do it just with Fe3 plus and Fe2 plus, so you can see the difference in the response when they add this ferrocyanide. So you can try that out and you can see what that looks like. Now, the tricky part about it is they also do it with ferrocyanide. And so you just want to make sure that you're watching the right part of the video. But they actually go through an explanation about it as well. And this was put on by Flynn Scientific. Right? So now with this one, for our first mixture, the one that had our KBr, when we do this test, we get no blue precipitate. And on this other one, let's go ahead and let's make this line a little bit better. Let's come around from the top. But when we do that same test with our iodine, so our Ki and our FeCO3, when we add in that K3 when we add in that K3 FeCN6, what we're going to see is down at the bottom, we're going to get a dark blue precipitate to form. And so you can use that to answer your question about, do you have any Fe2 plus at the end of your reaction? Okay, so that brings us through part 4. And so the last part that we have is part 5. Now, part 5 is going to be the reaction of our halogens with water. Not halogens with water, the reactions of our halogens with metal. I'm going to use this to find out whether or not we have any copper, or whether we have any bromine, right? Or whether we have any iodine. So we're going to try to work through that to see, do we make any of those ions? So if we put in copper solid and bromine solid, does any of it turn into ions? If we put copper with our iodine, does any of it turn into ions? So that's what we're testing for. And so I was able to find a positive result for the copper, what it looks like when it interacts with the ammonia to make its complex ion. And I was able to find what the different precipitates look like with the silver, but I wasn't able to find anyone that was doing this exact test that we're looking for. Right? So your data is going to come from this video. So I'll tell you what your results should look like, and then you can watch the video so that way you can see what I mean from your responses. Right? And so then after that, you should have enough data to be able to put it together. So just like last time, we have 2 tests. Now, in this one, we're going to add in some copper metal. So adding in copper metal into both. Put them into solution. And then we're adding in some bromine liquid into this one. It's actually dissolved in water, so I guess that's not a liquid. That's really it being aqueous. But we're adding in Br2 to that one. And in this one over here, we're going to add in some iodine inside of methanol. So we mix those together. And then what we're looking for is we're going to try to test them to see if we have any responses. So we shake, shake, shake. We mix, mix, mix. And I'm going to separate my first one, this bromine one. We're going to separate it into 2 containers. And so what I've taken with this, I've taken the supernatant. Right? So I've taken just the liquid portion. And in the first one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test for my bromine. So I'm going to add in silver nitrate. Because when you add in silver nitrate, what we're going to produce is a very insoluble precipitate. If there was any bromine in there, what we would see down here at the bottom, actually, I guess it's a little bit on the yellowish outside of things, is we'd see a solid, that form, which we would say is AgBr. And so we do actually see that form when we take our bromine test. So when we do this one and we add in that bromine, we do see our bromine get produced. And so we know that we had some bromine ions in there. In our second test, we're adding in ammonia. We're adding in a lot of ammonia into there. And so what we're looking for is we're looking for this solution to turn blue. Because if it turns blue, then we're making this complex ion, this copper ammonium, and so that's what we're looking for. And so when we do our test, the first one, we put in that silver nitrate, we do see that AgBr form. And on the second one, when we put in the ammonia, we do see our ion form as well. And so that's our results, or our observations that we should see for part 5 with our copper and our bromine. We do something similar with our iodine. We split it into 2 We add in ammonia to one. We add in silver nitrate to the other. And in this case, we see a solid form in with this silver nitrate. Now that solid is going to be AgI. It's really more of a whitish solid, but me drawing a whitish solid doesn't seem like it would be a good visual. And so that's what's happening in that one. And over here, we see again that nice blue color form. And that should be all of the information that you need in order to answer this lab. Right? And so you want to go through, you want to work through, you want to build your couples, right? And so you want to think about which ones are oxidizing and which ones are reducing in each of these reactions. If they don't react, that means that they're lined up in the correct way. That means that you have your strongest oxidizer in its oxidized state. Right? You have, or not, it means that you have whoever wants to be oxidized in the oxidized state, whoever wants to be reduced in the reduced state. If you see a reaction occur, that means that they weren't in the right place. And so when you make your redox tables, you need to make them accordingly. And so you should be able to put that through all the way through. You'll upload this once again to Gradescope, right? So that's already set up for you to do that through Gradescope. And then the second part is there is a way for you to try a little bit of this at home, right? So down at the very bottom, if you want to try to plate out some copper, all you need to do is take some copper, a little bit of vinegar, and if you have like a iron nail, you can actually do this experiment at home. You can kind of see what that looks like. All right. I hope this works out. If you have any questions, you can always email me. Good luck.